طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Tonight, بإذن ta'ala, we'll continue reading in a chapter from wal-Marjan, and we've reached a new discussion, a new topic of discussion, but it's still connected to the night prayer. And that is in the 33rd chapter. It says باب الأمر بتعهد القرآن وكراهة قولي نسيت آية كذا وجواز قولي أنسيتها. It says باب الأمر بتعهد القرآن, the command, the obligation, the recommendation to look after the Quran. Look after the Quran. What you've memorized, review it. What you've studied, go over. Don't become sloppy, don't become rusty. Always read it, always review it, always stay sharp, always stay on your toes. Keep up with what you have learned from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, the discussion of a ruling when you do forget something from the Quran. And you do become a bit rusty or a bit sloppy or not as sharp as you previously were. And that is, you shouldn't say, I forgot or I've forgotten. Even though you are forgetting and you're a human being. But you shouldn't say that. For one reason or another, you shouldn't say, I forgot. But you should say, unseat, I have been made to forget. I have been caused to forget. Also, he says here, وَكَرَاهَةِ قَوْلِ نُسِيت آيَةْ كَذَا وَجَوَازِ قَوْلِ نُسِيت. طيب, ماشي. So we see here, nothing to do with the prayer. Rather to do with recitation of the Quran. But obviously the Quran is recited in the prayer in general. And in a more specific way, it's recited in the night prayer. When it's a very long prayer. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِذَا أَمَّا أَحَدُكُمْ أو إِذَا صَلَّى أَحَدُكُمْ بِالنَّاسِ. Whenever you lead the prayer, whenever you're a leader of the people, فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. Then shorten the prayer. Because among them, we know there are those who are old, those who are sick, those who are weak, those who need things. Other narrations or other versions of the narration say, and when a person prays by himself, فَلْيُطَوِّلْ مَا شَاءَ. And pray as long as you like. Pray as long as you like. But the imam of the masjid has to be mindful of the people and their condition, and not to lead the salah in such a long, lengthy manner or way, with such a long surah. So you have to review reciting the small surahs or the short surahs, the medium-sized surahs, or parts of a long surah. You recite half a page from Baqarah, Labas, a page from Araf, etc. But it's not as intense as a person praying at night, in which you're making 8 rak'at, 11 rak'at, 13 rak'at, in which each rak'at in itself could be 10 minutes. I don't understand. That's 80 minutes of reciting the Quran. It's a long salah. It's a lot of Quran being recited. Or your rak'ah may be longer than 10 minutes, or shorter. Al-Muhim, you're going to be reciting a lot of Quran. So this is the connection between this and the concept of the salah, the prayer at night. Naam? طيب. Also, the concept of having respect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having respect with Allah and what you say. And putting forth the best words when you speak about Allah, His names, His attributes. When you speak about the Quran, you speak about Islam. And it's not for a person to say, well, what's the big deal? Well, that's a petty issue. What's the big... No, you have to have respect with Allah Azza wa Jalla, utmost respect. And this is one of the rights of Tawheed, as is beautifully explained in Kitab al-Tawheed of Muhammad, the Mukammilat of Tawheed, and the things that pertain to Tawheed, the things that don't necessarily apply to Shirk and Kufr, Shirk Akbar and Kufr Akbar. You read the later chapters in Kitab al-Tawheed and you'll see this. The chapter about attributing Allah's favors to other than Allah. Attributing Allah's bounties to other than Allah. Even though you know and you believe that they only came from Allah. but you say it verbally, attributing it to someone else. The hadith of the three men, right? The leper, the bald man, the blind man, etc. وهكذا. These are all from the rights of Tawheed. طيب. So the first narration, it says, حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت سمع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قارئا يقرأ من الليل في المسجد فقال يرحمه الله لقد أذكرني كذا وكذا آية أسقطتها من سورة كذا وكذا. حديث ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إنما مثل صاحب القرآن كمثل صاحب الإبل المعلقة أو كمثل صاحب الإبل قال قال معلش المعقلة، لا معلقة، المعقلة، أي قال يعني إن عاهد عليها أمسكها وإن أطلقها ذهبت. حديث عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بئس ما لأحدهم أن يقول نسيت آية كيت وكيت بل نسي واستذكروا القرآن فإنه أشد تفصيا من صدور الرجال من النعم. حديث أبي موسى رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال تعاهدوا القرآن فوالذي نفسي بيده لهو أشد تفصيا من الإبل في عقلها. So the 33rd chapter, there's several hadiths mentioned. The first of them is hadith number 451. It's report of Aisha radiallahu anha. She says that the Prophet ﷺ heard a man reciting the Quran in the mosque at night. The Prophet said, may Allah bestow his mercy on him, as he has reminded me of such and such verses of such and such surah which I have missed. Hadith 452 is narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the example of the person who knows the Quran by heart is like the owner of tied camels. If he keeps them tied, he will control them, but if he releases them, they will run away. Hadith 453 is narrated by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is a bad thing that some of you say, I've forgotten such and such a verse of the Quran, for indeed he has been caused to forget it. So you must keep on reciting the Quran because it escapes from the hearts of men faster than camels do when they are released from their tying ropes. Last hadith of the chapter is hadith Abi Musa radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ said, keep on reciting the Quran, for by him in whose hand my life is, the Quran runs away faster than camels that are released from their tying ropes. So these hadiths clearly show what the chapter heading has mentioned. These hadiths teach us rulings, they teach us manners or an etiquette, and they also teach us about a reality. As far as the rulings, then that is the ruling on saying this and saying that. Is it haram or is it disliked? As far as the etiquette, then there lies no doubt. It is best not to say that. On another ruling, going back to the first category, is the permissibility that we're going to read of calling a surah by its name, surat kada, or ayat kada. Also, as far as the reality, these hadiths show us the reality of the Quran. And this is a part of its miraculous nature. It's part of its miraculous nature, as we have explained just in the NJ Dawah conference on your relationship with the marvelous Quran. Everything about the Quran is miraculous. Everything about it is mu'jiz, everything. And a person who wishes to study the Quran or criticize it or find fault in it or whatever he wishes to do with the Quran, the first step that you have to walk towards is the realization that Muslims believe that it is a divine book. It is not bound and restricted by the normal rules and the normal do's and don'ts. This book that was made by this unlettered, illiterate man, he died it was left in the house of this woman and was passed on to that companion, and it was on tree bark and leather and animal bone, and they just put it together, and it doesn't work like that. And if the Quran was not believed by Muslims to be divinely sent down by God Almighty Himself, then a person could possibly have room to criticize it and say, how can it just be scattered and put together like this? And no change has ever happened over 1,000 years. The foundation of our understanding of this book and its preservation, its conservation, is originally based off of faith. Is that it is it's unconventional. It was sent down upon the heart of a man, and it was taught, and people memorized it and memorize it to this day, etc. That's miraculous. The word in the Quran is miraculous. Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Ra, Alif Lam Mim Sad is miraculous. The language of the Arabs, and they couldn't challenge it. They couldn't attack it. Etc. The content of the Quran, and the list goes on. Everything about the Quran is what? Is mu'jiz. Everything about it is miraculous. Everything. And from the miraculous nature of the Quran is how easy it can come to you, and how easy Allah Azza wa Jalla makes it for you to memorize, and how easy it can be taken away from you. Are we understand this? Many other things in life, a person practices, works diligently, works tirelessly, so hard to get it. It takes a while for him to forget or to become rusty. You're going to hold on to it. You're going to keep something with you even if you don't do it for a long time. Riding a bike, catching a baseball, swimming, things like this. But the Quran, you may work hard, study, be diligent, and if you don't look after it and review it, let alone if you don't implement it and obey its rules and pray and etc., it will be taken away from you faster than a camel does when it's left untied. That in itself is what? That's miraculous. That's what? That's miraculous. If you hear a song that you didn't hear for 10 years, you're in Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS, you hear it and you what? You may know the lyrics to this day. Sahih amla. Everyone understand this? And you may not have listened to it, what? 10 years, 15 years. Because you listen to it so many times. Or a place, or a person, or food, or a nostalgia. You see, it comes to you like this. But the Quran is different. Even if you're familiar with it, if you're not practicing it and staying up on it, it'll slip out of your hands. And you realize that, subhanAllah, it's gone. Because it came in an unconventional way. Allah has made it easy. You have to put forth effort, of course. You have to study. But Allah Azza wa Jalla has divinely made it easy. He's facilitated it. And it can be taken away from you, and it can be lost also what? Easily as well. Everyone understand this? So the Quran, and we don't have the time to talk about this in detail, about the miraculous nature of this book. Every single aspect of the Quran in itself is groundbreaking. Everyone understand this? And totally unconventional. There's no book like it, period. And there'll never be another book like it. And there was never a book what? Like it. And all of those who try to make a book or make fun of the book or find fault in the book, they'll all be embarrassed and fall on their faces. In this life and thereafter, or in the hereafter. طيب. So this chapter, it teaches us, we said, it teaches us rulings, ahkam. And it teaches us adab, manners, etiquettes, or the etiquette. And it teaches us haqiqah, a reality, the reality of the Quran. طيب. An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says regarding this chapter here in Al-Minhaj, he says, في هذه الألفاظ فوائد. He says there are many benefits in these different versions of these hadiths that are collected in Sahih Muslim. Number one, منها جواز رفع الصوت بالقراءة في الليل وفي المسجد ولا كراهة فيه إذا لم يؤذي أحدا ولا تعرض للرياء والإعجاب ونحو ذلك. The first benefit is the permissibility to raise one's voice with the recitation of the Quran. To raise one's voice while reciting the Quran at night. And or in the masjid. And there's nothing about that which is disliked or wrong or bad or looked down upon. If you're in the masjid at nighttime and recite the Quran, you pray, someone's laying down, someone's studying, such, there's nothing wrong with raising your voice with the Quran. And it isn't disliked. And the reason why he's saying this is because some ulama may say that it's what? Disliked. Some of the ulama, they would say that knowledge should not be taught in the masjid. Yes. No. Some of the well-known ulama, they held this view that there should not be classes in the masjid how they're held now, because it is a means of what? Raising the voice. And it's a means of disturbing the peace of the masjid, the serenity of the masjid. Teaching ilm is outside of the masjid. As far as a reminder or the khutbah, that's one thing. But actual durus, ilmiya, muhadarat, lectures, they say no. Everyone understand this? And as we've explained before, for a student of knowledge to know of an issue, and to know that the ulama differ on an issue, and to know that there is actual an issue at hand, that in itself is a level of knowledge. Just to know about the mas'ala, that in itself is a what? It's a level of knowledge. Knowing the truth about that issue is a level of knowledge. Knowing why this the truth is a what? Level of knowledge. Being able to compare and manipulate the different views and play with them and take the strongest one is a what? A level of knowledge. Knowing the falsehood and the incorrect view and why, knowing its proof. And be able to debate on its behalf and to play its advocate is also a level of what? Mastery. Not necessarily knowledge. Now it's a level of what? Mastery. When you can play what? Both. Everyone understand this? Chess, right? You can play white and black. You know? They say Bobby Fischer, one of the greatest grandmasters of the United States, the champion of the United States in the Cold War, when he defeated the great Russian genius. It said he was so talented that he would play himself. Multiple games at once. He would play himself. And it was never ever a one-sided game in which the right hand is always stronger than the left. No, they said he was equally fighting himself black and white at the same time. He was fighting and trying to beat himself at the what? At the same time. This is white's move and this is what? Black's move. And he himself is the one who's doing what? Making the move. But he's switching it instantly, switching his brain to the other side and fighting himself. Everyone understand this? That's a level of what? Mastery. There are levels to this. Knowing how to play just white in itself is a level of knowledge of chess. Knowing how to play black is what? Knowing both strategy, defense and offenses. But knowing that level is what? Different story. And the same applies to ilm. When you know of something. I didn't even know this was an issue. I didn't know the ulama differed over this. To know that is a what? It's a level higher than what you were previously before. Now, to know the dalil, وهكذا. Everyone understand this? Play it. So Anawi, he says that this hadith proves that it is permissible to raise your voice when you recite the Quran at nighttime. And to raise your voice in the Quran as long as you're not harming anyone. As long as you're not annoying anyone. And as long as a person is free from showing off. And i'jab, amazement and self-conceit. وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ, and things like this. Right? And obviously, like many other issues, Khalid, you find different views of the ulama. Imam Malik said this, Fulan said that. The sunnah is clear. The Prophet spoke in the masjid. He raised his voice in the masjid. He addressed the companions in the masjid. And that's why it's dangerous. When people go too far with this scholar, what did the scholar say? And no, we have to understand the scholar. A scholar said, I can teach his book. You can't teach it if a scholar doesn't say you can teach his book. You have to be careful. Because there are different views and statements and opinions of scholars which are in clear contradiction to the authentic sunnah. You understand this? Without any attack on anybody. But you find many views of Imam Malik. He says, I never saw anyone doing this in Medina. I never saw this. And the hadith is crystal clear, authentic, sahih. You understand this? So you have to be mindful of this. Ar-Ra'i, as some of the Salaf would say, such as Umar ibn Abdul Aziz and others. خُذُوا مِنَ الرَّأِي مَا تَفْقَهُونَ بِهِ حَدِيثَكُمْ أو كما قالوا. They said, understand opinion and view, fiqh, with that which will allow you to understand the athar and the hadith. It's like salt and pepper. Not too much, but it can't be too bland. Everyone understand this? The main course is the steak, the potatoes. But you need seasoning, you need this, you need that, you need that. But that's not the what? That's not your main thing. Your main thing is the athar, the hadith. And we understand these hadith based on this principle. This alim, he explained this hadith, kada, kada, kada. But the asal is what? It's hadith, no doubt. Everyone understand this? And not, I want to go to this restaurant because they have really good Peruvian potatoes. Really good Peruvian potatoes. You ever been to a potato house before? How many potato houses are there in New York City, Habib? How many potato houses are there?
No idea, Sheikh.
How many steak houses are there?
There's a lot.
Countless. Brazilian, Peruvian, this, huh? Because that's the what? That's the asal. But you can't just have a piece of meat on a plate. Asparagus, potatoes, whatever else. You need things on the side. How to prepare the steak, how to season it, huh? How to present it. But that's not necessarily, that's the sideshow, the footnote. The main chapter, the main concept is the actual steak itself, and not the opposite. And unfortunately, we live in a time of the opposite. They want to go to a potato house. I'll take the Peruvian potatoes with a side of ribeye. Would you respect anyone who said that? You see, now they're crazy, right? You can be a vegetarian, that's fine. But you don't order a side of steak with a what? Potato and asparagus. You just don't do that. And that's the time in which we live. The Sheikh Fulan, the scholar, and this alim, and this imam, and this madhab, and the hadith and the sunnah is what? On the side of the plate. It's the garnish. And if you come out and say, no guys, we're doing something seriously wrong. We're supposed to have this big fat juicy steak with the vegetables and the salad on the side. They say, no, you hate the scholars. You disrespect the scholars. You think you're a scholar. You think you're better than the scholars, etc. So we live in a time of mental perversion. And this mental perversion is not just by people that are non-Muslims or kuffar or munafiqun or people that are on some crazy left-wing, right-wing bid'ah, but people, unfortunately, who have hijacked the name and the title of Orthodox Islam. The purest strand of Islam possible, the way of the Salaf. That's the name that they use and they quote to. And they're mentally perverted. Everyone understand this? So we have to be mindful of this. So what Imam Malik said, that's against the Sunnah, may Allah have mercy on Malik. Shafi, Ahmed, or anyone. What Imam Malik said, explaining the Sunnah, and it's based off of the principles, la bas. We benefit from that. We take that. We learn from that. And we've been explaining this for some years now. But I cannot stress how important it is and how dangerous it is. And it's clear from that worldly example. There is no potato house. No one goes hunting for potatoes, hunting for asparagus with a side of steak. Even though those things are what? Are needed and are necessary. The salt and the pepper for the food is what? Is necessary. As he says, خُذُوا مِنَ الرَّأْيِ. You have to have some ra'i, some fiqh, some type of reasoning to allow you to understand the actual what? حَدَّثَنَا and أَخْبَرَنَا. The athar, the chunk. You understand this? So he says that this hadith proves that there's nothing wrong with that. As long as a person doesn't do this, doesn't do that, kada. Now, moving forward. He says another faida from these hadiths. وَفِيهِ الدُّعَاءُ لِمَنْ أَصَابَ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ جِهَتِهِ خَيْرًا. He says, and also making dua for someone who does good for you, even if they didn't intend to do the good for you. Still pray for them. The Prophet ﷺ heard the man recite in the Quran. What did he say? May Allah have mercy on him. Did the man intend to recite to the Prophet of Islam? But the Prophet still what? Received the good and he prayed for him. Everyone understand this? Pray for someone that does good for you even if they don't intend to do good for you. Allahu Akbar. Let alone someone who intentionally what? Directly for you. Oh, go back to that mental perversion as well. Everyone understand this? Today you're my teacher. You're my sheikh. And tomorrow you're dalun mudil. You're astray and you're leading others astray. Yes, yesterday I was sitting at your feet. Now I'm warning from you. كيف هذا? Everyone understand this? How can this possibly be? Well, wasn't he your teacher? Didn't he teach you? La, he never taught me anything. I was unaware of his affair at the time. I sat in some of his classes. Allah had challenged me and Allah saved me through such and such. Huh? Someone who directly gave you good, let alone someone who what? Indirectly gave you good. Everyone understand this? What did Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was quoted to have said? It's an athar. Allah alam how authentic it is. It's mentioned by Ibn Abi Dunya fi Kitab al-Samt, the book of silence. They say, the Ibn Abbas said, is that if Fir'aun was alive, and he said to me, Barakallahu feek, la qultu wa feek barakallah. He says, if Pharaoh said, may Allah bless you, I would say what? And you as well. I don't understand this. Not to show, may Allah bless Fir'aun, but the concept of what? General decency and dignity. General what? Decency and dignity. Everyone understand this? Have a nice day. A non-Muslim. You too. Let alone a Muslim, a person of ilm, a person of sunnah, someone who taught you, who educated you, who took out his time to travel from the Middle East to your country to teach you, or from your local country. I'm him. Someone that raised you and taught you and took you under their wing. And you speak ill of them and dispraise them and curse them and slander them. Whatever the issue possibly is, let alone in most cases you're wrong and he's right. And it's not a bid'ah, and it's not a mistake. But for what, regardless, person did this for you, raised you, took you from kufr, from the streets. And you can't make dua for this. Or at least say, I'm not going to say anything about him. Yes, he's clearly wrong, that's messed up what he's doing, but I'm too shy to speak about him. And the people, the shaitan, he tricks them so much. And he messes with their minds that they think this is wala and bara. They think this is, hardcore love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I won't shake his hand. I won't touch him if I saw him. They think that's like, mawqif, the position of Ahmed. Mentally miskeen. Everyone understand this? They think that that's like the praiseworthy Ibrahim freed himself from his father. The companions killed their parents on the Battle of Badr. Like, this is wala wal bara. Everyone understand this? And the shaitan has fondled their minds. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. طيب. The next fa'idah from this chapter, An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَفِيهِ جَوَازُ قَوْلِ سُورَةْ كَذَا كَسُورَةَ الْبَقَرَةِ وَنَحْوِهَا وَلَا الْتِفَاتِ إِلَى مَنْ خَالَفَ فِي ذَلِكَ. He says the permissibility of saying, before we move forward, go that far, he says, وَفِيهِ أَنَّ الْإِسْتِمَاعَ لِلْقِرَاءَةِ sunnatun. Listening to someone recite the Quran is a sunnah. Listening to someone recite the Quran is a sunnah. And that is an issue in itself with regards to the sajadat. If you're listening to someone recite the Quran and they recite the ayah in which there's a sajda, do you have to make sajda? Should you make the sajda? There's a difference between listening and hearing. If you hear it, that's one thing. But if you're listening, different story. Everyone understand this? You might be in the masjid reciting the Quran and you think that you're bothering someone. They may be, they may enjoy your recitation of the Quran. طيب. He says also the permissibility to say a surah of such and such and such and such as Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Nisa, Surah Al-Nas. He says, listen carefully, like I just mentioned about the perversion. He says, وَلَلْتِفَاتَ. He says it matters not. And there's no attention or respect to be paid to one who goes against and says that you can't say that. You can't say Surah Al-Baqarah. But you must say As-Surah allati fiha al-Baqarah. Or fiha dhikru al-Baqarah. Some of the Salaf, they would say this. The surah in which Baqarah is mentioned. The surah in which Al-A'raf is mentioned. And some of them will refrain from saying Surah Al-A'raf. An-Nawawi says what? No. He says there's no consideration of that view. Why? Why isn't this view considered, Khalid? Why is this view unimportant and totally insignificant? لماذا? And this alim has said it, Fulan has said it, Sheikh Fulan has said it. He says, فَقَدْ تَظَاهَرَتِ الْأَحَادِيثُ الصَّحِيحَةُ عَلَى اسْتِعْمَالِهِ. Because there's so many authentic hadiths that clearly state Surah Kada, Surah Kada. So if the proof is clearly established, what this virtuous or learned person says means what? Nothing at all. Zilch. Understand this? This is the way of the ulama here. Understand this? May Allah have mercy on Fulan. The clear proof is established, doesn't matter. And the same applies on a personal level as well. I've known you for 10 years, for 20 years, for 15 years, or for 5 years. We've traveled, we've studied, we've done this. A foreigner, a person who barely knows you, says something about you, or speaks about you, or hears a statement or whatever, and he warns from you, you can't sit with him, you can't be his friend. I know him personally. Am I more knowledgeable than him? I'm not claiming that, but I know him what? Personally. So how can I take my yaqeen, detailed knowledge of his aqeedah that I know for someone who barely knows him? Cut and paste. Something that's seriously what? Seriously wrong. And anytime you go somewhere and there's a dawah organization in which the people are telling who your friends can and cannot be, something is seriously wrong mentally. Who you can hang out with and who can be your friend. Who you can speak to, who can shake your hand. That's weird. That's very, very weird. And this exists on a daily basis as we speak. Who your friends are. That's mentally sick. An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَفِي كَرَهْتُ قَوْلْ نَسِيتُ آيَةْ كَذَا. And it is dislike to say, I've forgotten this verse and I've forgotten that verse. It's dislike to say that. وَهِيَ كَرَاهَةُ تَنْزِيهٍ. And it is not haram, but it's just disliked. It's just disliked. وأنه لا يكره قول أنسيتها وإنما نهى عن نسيتها لأنه يتضمن التساهل فيها وتغافل عنها. وقد قال الله تعالى أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها. وقال القاضي عياض إلى آخر الحديث. He says here that is disliked to say I've forgotten, but a person should say I've been made to forget them. Why is this? Aren't you the human being that forgot? He says this is because when a person says I've forgotten, it includes and it entails that you were lethargic, lackadaisical. You weren't on point. You weren't on top of it. And Allah Azza wa Jalla clearly said in Surah Taha, talking about those who turn away from Allah's dhikr, how they have a difficult, burdensome life, and they'll be resurrected on the day of judgment blind. This servant, this poor slave will say, oh my Lord, why have you resurrected me blind? And in the worldly life, I could clearly see. Allah says, thus have our ayat come to you, and you have forgotten them. And on this day, you will be forgotten. Everyone understand this? So this is the wisdom behind this. The connection of the Quran and the Sunnah together. That a person saying, I have forgotten, is a bad thing. Because it includes a person being mutasahil, being laxed, not taking it seriously. Everyone understand this? Not working, not respecting the Quran, right? If someone gave you a blue diamond, what would you do with it? What type of fool would leave the blue diamond on his steps? Or in the passenger side of his car? Even with the window locked or the door locked. Only a fool would do that. Anyone who has any common sense will know that this is an extremely valuable stone. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to preserve it. I'm going to put it in a safe immediately. Everyone understand this? So the fact that you were given this gem and you didn't preserve it and you didn't look after it, it proves something. That's the wisdom behind you not saying, I forgot. Instead saying, I was caused to what? Forget. Everyone understand this? Moving forward. He says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وقال القاضي إياض أول ما يتأول عليه الحديث أن معناه ذم الحال لا ذم القول أي نسيت الحالة حالة من حفظ القرآن فغفل عنه حتى نسيه. And others, they say that the best interpretation of this hadith is the dispraise of the situation and not necessarily the dispraise of the actual statement. The situation of someone who memorizes the Quran and then sleeps on it and heedlessly allows it to escape him is dispraised. And not necessarily the what? Statement itself, but the actual what? Situation. The situation of someone who's memorized and then what? Forgotten. But we don't have to go that far. The hadith clearly says statement. Everyone understand this? For the actual what? Statement. Right, moving forward. He then says another issue from this hadith. كنت أنسيتها دليل على جواز النسيان عليه صلى الله عليه وسلم فيما قد بلغه إلى الأمة وقد تقدم في باب سجود السهو الكلام فيما يجوز من السهو عليه صلى الله عليه وسلم وما لا يجوز. Also, when the Prophet ﷺ says, I have been made to forget, he says this proves that the Prophet could possibly forget. That the Prophet could possibly forget. And he's only going to forget something that he's already passed on to the ummah. Once I've given you the teachings, it's what? It's been preserved. So if I forget, it doesn't matter anymore. The Prophet gave it to the Sahaba, he recited it to them, he gave it to them. If he forgot and he was reminded, it doesn't cause any what? Any harm. The harm will be if he forgot something that he didn't relay. Everyone understand this? You with me? He says here, and we previously explained in the chapter of Sujood al-Sahw, the prostration of forgetfulness, about what the Prophet could possibly forget or not. Hmm? And obviously, this is another issue with regards to, and this is not pertaining to our Prophet, hasha wa kalla, but the concept, or any Prophet, but the general concept of a sin. Is it possible for a Prophet to make a sin? Is it possible for a Prophet to fall into a sin? Or are they totally exempt from sin? If it is possible for them to fall into a sin, what sin can they fall into? A major sin or only minor sins? All minor sins. Or the sins which are immoral, sins which are a means of discrediting their honor and their equity. They're exempt from that, no question. They'll never ever do something which will be a means of them being attacked. Everyone understand this? Moving forward, that's a long discussion in itself. قال القاضي إياض رحمه الله جمهور المحققين قال القاضي إياض رحمه الله تعالى جمهور المحققين لعله سقط على جواز النسيان عليه صلى الله عليه وسلم ابتداء فيما ليس طريقه البلاغ واختلفوا فيما طريقه البلاغ والتعليم ولكن من جوز قال لا يقر عليه بل لا بد أن يتذكره أو يذكره واختلفوا هل من شروط ذلك الفور أم يصح على التراخي قبل وفاته صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ومن نسيان ما بلغه أو بلغه في هذا الحديث فيجوز قال وقد سبق بيان سوه في الصلاة قال وقال بعض الصوفية ومتابعيهم لا يجوز السهو عليه أصلا في شيء وإنما يقع منه سورته وليس إلا وهذا تناقض مردود ولم يقل بهذا أحد مما يقتدى به إلا الأستاذ أبو الظفر الإسفرايني من شيوخنا فإنه مال إليه ورجحه وهو ضعيف متناقض. An-Nawawi, he says that Qadi Iyad says most of the strong scholars, they say that the Prophet could possibly forget. Not all of them, but most of them. That it is possible for the Prophet to what? To forget something. And this is, he says here, it says here, قال القاضي إياض رحمه الله جمهور المحققين طيب. He says here, with regards to the Prophet ﷺ forgetting something from the beginning, that which doesn't have to be conveyed. That's one thing. As far as that which the Prophet ﷺ has to convey and relay, can he forget or not? Everyone understand this? He forgot after he conveyed it or before he conveyed it, etc. Some of them, they say that if he does forget, he will not be acknowledged upon that forgetfulness. It won't stay. He'll be reminded, or he himself will what? Will remember before the time is up. Everyone understand this? There's a huge difference. If I give a khutbah, and I make a mistake in the khutbah, right? A mistake that changes the meaning, not a slip of the tongue, or I was speaking fast, or randomly talking, thoughts flying through my head, but it's something that's a mistake. That's bad. Right? Me fixing it in a second khutbah is not like the same of you coming up to me and telling me later on. Everyone understand this? I fixed it. I realized it myself. You understand? He says here, does this have to be done immediately? Yani, these different issues that they differ over, etc. Tayyib. Tayyib. Then he goes on to mention a very interesting statement here with regards to some Sufis and some of those who follow them. They say that the Prophet can never ever forget. He can never forget. He doesn't forget. And if he does forget, he's not actually forgetting, but it's just the surah. It seems as if he's forgetting. It seems as if he's what? Forgetting. The surah. The situation looks like, but in actuality, deep down inside, he didn't actually what? Forget. I know he mentions this. Mutanaqid mardud. He says this is total falsehood. Mutanaqid is contradictory and it's rejected. And no one from the Imams of guidance to be followed ever made this statement. Except for a small handful, this one and that one. But no real true scholar made a statement like this. And it's a principle as well. Falsehood is not accepted, no matter who says it. And if a statement doesn't make sense, then it is of what value? Zero. Rather, zero could have more value than it. -1. Right? Everyone understand this? Brothers who are mathematicians, right? طيب, zero could have what? More weight than certain statements. So a batil statement is a batil statement. It doesn't matter who makes it, right? Are you understand this? طيب. He then says here, إنما مثل صاحب القرآن كمثل الإبل المعقلة إلى آخره فيه الحث ولا تعاهد القرآن وتلاوته والحذر من تعريضه للنسيان. When the Prophet ﷺ says that the Quran, the memorizer of the Quran, Sahib al-Quran, is like camels that are tied up. To the end of the hadith, he says this proves the recommendation, the hath. It's recommended to look after the Quran and always recite it, and to beware of allowing it to slip through your hands. Beware of you forgetting it. طيب. خيرنا inshallah. We'll stop here tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.